Welcome on in, everyone. It's Malliem back with another weekly horror story. If you've got a story you'd like to share, feel free to post it to my subreddit linked below. Today's story is called I Found My Missing Brother, and it is absolutely heartbreaking, but the true horror comes at the end. If you enjoy the show, consider subscribing. Thanks! It had been a year since anyone had seen him. Our mother passed just a few weeks after the car crash that took his fiancé's life. I felt lost. My future sister-in-law, my mother, and my brother. All gone in a matter of months. I hadn't seen my mother in close to a decade, and only saw her again once she was in the casket. She had grown so old since I left. All of her children had spread to the wind like the seeds of a dandelion, but my brother was the closest to her. Had I not been in Chicago on business when I got the call that he was missing, I feel like I could have found him. He and his partner had lived in Santa Fe, New Mexico. His neighbor called a wellness check, and the police declared him missing. After our sister was contacted, she was told he had likely chosen to disappear into the mountains. It's such a large area of wilderness. I just can't spare the resources to look for someone who doesn't want to be found. That's what the sheriff told her. It was in a last-ditch effort to find some form of solace that I decided to go back to our childhood home. It had sat empty and untouched since our mother's death. None of us had it in us to remove anything. So there it sat, like a time capsule to our younger days. As I pulled onto the street of our tiny Iowa town, I saw a car in front of the house. It had New Mexico plates. A spark of hope welled up in me, but as I parked in the driveway, just behind the familiar little red car, I saw the house looked abandoned. I stepped out of my car and my excitement turned to suspicion and dread. A woman, who was not one of the neighbors I remembered, was looking through our mailbox. She threw worried glances over her shoulder several times. I called out to her, but she took off hurriedly down the street after hastily stuffing the envelopes she had purloined back into the mailbox. I thought it odd that this address would have any mail at all. We'd at least taken the time to whitelist the house so nothing would be sent here. But as I crossed the street, hesitation overtook me. I sat for a moment, unable to look inside. Was it even worth it? I opened the box, and its contents nearly avalanched into my arms. It was full of letters, clearly written in my brother's handwriting. I walked back to the house, sorting through the envelopes. My breath caught in my throat when I noticed several dates postmarked well after he had gone missing. There was no return address. They were all addressed to me. I felt a tear prick the corner of my eye. Blinking it away, I unlocked the front door. There was little resistance in the keyway. It wasn't locked to begin with. I stepped inside and was greeted by a familiar scent, now tainted with age and rot. Everything, save for a thick layer of dust, was exactly as it had been, even before I left some 10 years ago. The cold January air was less chilling. I sat gingerly on our old piano bench, my back towards the little upright piano that sat in the living room. It was out of tune when I was a child. I shuddered to think what it must sound like now. I looked at the pile of letters in my lap. There had to be a couple dozen at least. When I looked at the postmark date of what I assumed was the final letter, my hand shot to my mouth and the tears that had been threatening finally flowed. It was only 3 months old. It was written in November, and Rick had gone missing in February. I couldn't read it. Not then. I sifted through the letters until I found the oldest one, a few weeks before his disappearance. I quickly ripped open the envelope and read, January 23rd, 2025. Dear Lucy, Sandy told me that you'd be dealing with Mom's estate. I can't tell you how grateful I am for that. I can't face the house quite yet. If you're reading this, then obviously it arrived at Mom's place. I'm not sure how often you check the mail, but I hope you find this soon. It seems almost alien to be writing letters these days, but here I am. I'd ask you not to worry, but I know how big sisters are. I'm seeing a therapist. She's been really helpful so far. She suggested turning off my phone. No more doom scrolling for me, so if you'd like to reach me, write me. This is supposed to be a kind of detox from the internet, I guess. I'm supposed to journal and write letters, read books, get outside. Seems so simple, but I can see the benefits. If it weren't so damn cold outside. Anyways, hope to hear from you soon. Your loving brother, Rick. Damn it. Sandy told him I'd be here? I stood up from the bench too quickly and my vision darkened. I put a hand to my head and pinched the bridge of my nose in frustration. I paced down the hallway and saw my brother's room. A portrait I had drawn of him with a number 2 pencil was taped to the door. I touched his graphite cheek. Sandy had asked me to take care of the estate, but I was so confused and emotional that I forgot to answer her. I pushed open the door and looked at Rick's room. It was like a shrine to his teenage self. I sat on the edge of his bed and flipped to the next letter, dated 1 week later. January 30th, 2025. Hey, Lucy. Still waiting to hear back from you. Hell, you might have already wrote me back and I just haven't gotten it yet. I know how the postal system can be. My counselor is worried about how I'm going to deal with so much death when I'm physically isolated from you and Sandy. I told her that her advice about journaling and staying off my phone was helpful. I'm actually not sure where my phone is. I've been getting out. I volunteered at a soup kitchen last week. You wouldn't believe the stories those other volunteers can tell. Anyway, I'd love to hear how you're doing. How are Dave and your dogs? I know you and Mom had your issues, so please reach out if you need to talk. Love you, Rick. I found myself clutching at the dusty, Star Wars-themed comforter on the creaky twin bed. My gaze went to the ancient-looking, book-lined roll-top writer's desk he kept in the corner. I could almost see him scrawling these letters at a similar desk in his little bungalow in New Mexico. February 3rd, 2025. Lucy. Sorry for the 3rd letter so quick. I just got excited and couldn't wait to write you. I'm going cross-country skiing. I found one of those old pull-tab interest boards in the lobby of the mental wellness being. I used a payphone. They still have those. To call the guy. They've got a whole group. I'm gonna buy all the stuff I need. We are heading up onto the trail Friday. Wish me luck. Rick. That was the weekend of the wellness check. Oh, Rick. He was always like that. Instead of dealing with problems, he'd dive headlong into a new project. After our dog died when he was 12, he got obsessed with the little green and tan army men. He'd religiously recreate World War I battlefields with Lincoln logs and Legos. If he couldn't think about his own problems, then they didn't exist. How was he still sending letters? I checked the next date. It was over a month later. March 12th, 2025. Lucy. At this point, I know I won't receive any letters from you. I haven't been home in over a month. I've been staying in a cabin in the Sangre de Cristo range with some of the other members of the skiing group I told you about. My counselor was actually a member, and as part of a group therapy project she's working on, we'll be here indefinitely until we can properly experience the grief we've been holding on to. Mourn our loved ones, that sort of thing. I'll continue sending you letters. The counselor has us write to anyone we'd like, then she takes them into town and mails them for us. I guess you'll be my journaling buddy since I won't hear back from you. Love you, Rick. Who was his counselor? The police never mentioned anything about him seeing a counselor. She had to have known he was reported missing. The fact that he was still sending letters for months after he disappeared couldn't have just been ignored by authorities. Could it? I skipped to July. I needed to know what was happening. As I tore open the envelope, a gust of wind that came in through a partially broken window threatened to take the letters out of my grip. I left the room and paced back down the hallway to the kitchen. The smell of rotten decay became stronger. Anything could have gotten in and died while the house stood empty. I tried to ignore it. July 18th, 2025. Lucy, there have been 4 people who've left the group so far. Anytime someone is ready to face the root of their grief, the counselor takes them on a field trip. She's usually gone for a couple weeks. I guess this program has been a huge success. I must admit that I'm missing the city. While the other patients are great guests, some of whom I'd even call good friends, this feels like the isolation she initially warned me about. I don't know. I've realized that Annie's death was something that can't be undone. Obviously, right? But it was so sudden. The universe just decided that it was her time. I've come to terms with that. I'm still allowed to be sad about it, though. Right? I don't ever have to get over it like the counselor wants me to, do I? I mean, she was the love of my life for 7 years. Maybe that's my problem. I can't move on. Hope you're doing better than me, Rick. I flipped the letter over to find a printed photo taped to the back. There were 8 people in a tiny cabin. It looks like the kind kids might sleep in at a summer camp. It took a moment, but I found him. I barely recognized Rick. His usually athletic build and clean-shaven face had been replaced by a thin frame and a scraggly beard. The circles under his eyes made him look so old and tired. The woman standing front and center must have been his counselor. She looked oddly familiar. Again, a draft blew through the house, and the scent of death wafted over me, making me gag. I walked over to where it was the strongest, the stairwell in the corner. I had to pinch my nose shut to keep the nausea away. This part of the house was more sheltered from the cold and the wind, a fine place for a rodent to make its home. I looked down into the basement as an eerie silence hung in the air. The dusty blackness in front of me seemed to devour the shafts of sunlight that streamed in through the window behind me. I found the final letter and sat on the little shoe bench beside the stairs. November 23rd, 2025. Lucy. It's been just over 10 months since I started this journey. I think I made a lot of strides in coming to terms with Annie's and Mom's deaths. There are only a few of us left up here at the cabin. The counselor says that I'm almost ready to go back into the world. We'll be taking our field trip soon. She told me in private that she takes each of her patients to visit the focal point of their grief, so that we can face it or something like that. But it means I'm coming home. Or at least to Mom's place. I know it'll probably just be an empty shell of a house if you guys haven't sold it yet. See you soon. Rick. I remembered the car outside. It was Rick's. Was he still here? It had to have been at least a month since he came. Why would his car still be here? Before I could stop myself, I called out, "Rick, it's Lucy. Are you down there?" No answer came. I took my phone from its place in my purse and turned on the flashlight. "I'm coming down!" I took the stairs, and one by one they creaked and crackled under my weight. My stomach turned in knots as the stink of decay got stronger with each step downward. Could Rick be living down here? Why else would he stay? I reached the bottom and turned, sweeping my flashlight across the basement. I had to shake my head when I noticed the pool table. I could have used this. Dave's been nagging me about getting one. There was no sign anyone but I had been here. I looked at the door opposite me. It led into my old bedroom and it was standing wide open, like it was waiting for me. I walked past the pool table and towards the door, and just as I was about to cross the threshold, the stench became overpowering and I doubled over, coughing. I looked into the room, and laying on the bed was a body. It was pale, bruised, and old lacerations scabbed and oozed. The emaciated figure lay still. Every feature was gaunt, pulled tight like parchment over bone. "Rick?" My voice echoed in the darkness. I rushed to the shirtless body and turned it over. It was ice cold. Rick's eyes looked up at me through a dull, sightless sheen. A wail escaped my throat and tears burned my eyes. I shut them tightly as my body became racked with uncontrollable convulsions and sobs. I reached for his hand. I needed to hold it. I needed him to be alive again. But as I tried to open his rigid fingers, there was something else in his grasp. I looked through bleary eyes to see a small, wallet-sized photo. Wiping the tears away, I brought it closer. It was the same woman from the group photo, his counselor. On the back was simply written, "Find her."